Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hello everyone and welcome to your English class. In our lesson today, we will continue with our first unit, which is titled, Did You Hurt Yourself? Our lesson today is the writing lesson in your books, page 12 and 13. All you need for the lesson today is your books, page 12 and 13, a sheet of paper and a pen to take down your notes. Let's get started. You had a homework from the reading lesson. It was on page 10 and 11 to choose one of the stories that we've read together and write a report on the story, what happened, when did it happen, and who was involved. So choose any of the stories and come up with this report. For me, I've chosen one of the stories. When it happened in September 2017. Who was involved? The characters. He was Phil Lamatina. What happened? Now here I'm going to write briefly about it. Phil was racing down the track when his car became airborne, split in two, and burst into a fireball. He was knocked out, but he survived. Short and concise. The result, what happened to him? He survived and burned only on the tips of his fingers. So nothing happened to him. This is actually a report just like the information, not as organized as a paragraph. For our lesson today, you will be, by the end of today's lesson, you will be able to take notes on a written text. Also, you will write an account of an accident. So you need to refer to the accidents that we have read already in the reading lesson. Let's get started together. Here we're having actually 3 stories and we're having a box of words. Here, fill in the blanks of the escape stories with words or phrases from the list. Make necessary changes to the words. So present will be in the past and other things. The words are explosion, burst into, damage, strike, recover, injure, swerve, blast, survive, avoid, and strike again. Let's start reading the story together. A 33-year-old woman was seriously, what happened to her? She was seriously injured. Injured. When her gas oven exploded and it burst into flames. That blew the wall of an apartment building. The explosion, it blew the wall of the apartment building and a number of homes and damaged number of homes. Damaging is for things, however, injury is for people. The family living next door described the moment following not the explosion, we don't have an explosion this time, following the blast, which happened in the early hours of Sunday morning. Someone is saying, had the blast gone the other way, my 2 kids would have been killed, said the mother. My older son was almost by a flying brick. He was almost struck. So strike will be struck by a flying brick. Luckily, he was quick to cover his head with a pillow and what did he do? He avoided or protected his head. The rest of the words, we're having another story. We're having a Ferrari Formula 1 driver, Philip Massa. He is 28 years old. A freak accident after fracturing his skull, his head, in 2 places. He survived. Although this thing happened to him, however, he survived and he lived. Massa was by a heavy spring just over his left eye while he was traveling 270 kilometers per hour. He was struck by a spring. He fell into a coma and was in critical condition for some time. No one thought he was going to survive or live. but he managed to do what? To recover and return to driving a year later. The idea of recovery, when someone is getting better. Here, a little boy of four, he is 4 years old, was hit by a car that, to avoid another pedestrian who was crossing the road, was driving right and left to avoid, so it was that swerved. The boy was seen picking himself up and running off unhurt as the car smashed into a shop window nearby. So these are the words that we have used to complete these stories. Okay, we've spoken about the idea of an accident account, an account of an accident. Who can write an account of an accident? Is it you or me? Anyone can write an account of an accident. If you were an eyewitness, you have seen or you were involved in the accident. You were walking, then an accident happened, you can write an accident account. You will write about what you have seen. You are an eyewitness. Or, God forbid, you were part of the accident, you were hit by the car, you can write that account of an accident. What are you going to write? You will only write the important facts. So, not everything and no opinions. You will write facts. Not what you think it was a fancy car. No, you have to describe the color of the car. And not every single detail, just the things that are important. Also, the length. How long is it going to be? Not everything, so it should be short, concise, and focused. Not everything, very short. Who's going to read it? Official, maybe police officers, and they don't need to read long stories. It's not a story. Next, connections. Because it's going to be short, we need to use connections like so, because, although, but, and the others. These will make your story, or let's say your report, short, concise, and focused. And who are your audience? Are they going to be friends or family? No, they are going to be the officials, and they need to visualize the event as if you are giving them a picture to see. Okay, so these they are. Now here I have written here an account of an accident. Let's read it together and we will compare it to the writing corner. In September 2007, Phil Lamatina escaped death when he was driving at over 500 km per hour in a drag race in Brisbane, Australia. Phil was racing down the track when his car became airborne, split in two, and burst into a fireball. He was knocked out, but he survived. Although he was in the midst of the fireball, Phil was burned only the tips of his finger. So you can notice here that this is a very short writing, short paragraph, no more, 4 to 5 sentences, no more than these. But try to notice, I have used here the connections and, when, but. In one sentence, I have used 3 connections. Try to make it concise and connect it together. And the other sentence, although he was in the midst of the fireball, he burned only the tips of his finger. And here, all I have, we're having to use the although to connect 2 ideas together. So, it's short and concise, and from an eyewitness, someone who has seen the accident itself, we're having the connections, and we're having very short sentences. Let's go into here. Yes, we're having all the information like driving over 500 kilometers per hour, became airborne, split in two, and the others. So just the most important sentences or information. Okay, now in your books, page 13, exercise C. Have you ever seen an accident? Have you recently heard or read about an accident? Think about any accident that we have read together or something that you heard about. Write a short account of the event. Let's choose something that we are all familiar with, like from the reading, The Amazing Fall Escape. someone who had fallen. I'm speaking here about Bob Hale from the reading lesson. You can refer to if you don't remember it. Okay, but before we start in here, I want to remind you with the writing process. Before coming up with the final product, there are certain processes that we have to follow together. At the beginning, we start with the planning, and we have already started with the planning idea. I'm going to write about an accident, and this accident is something that we are all familiar with. It is about this and that. It is about a survival. So planning, what am I going to write about? Always to plan, read the question. Followed by drafting. When you start drafting, you will write everything that comes into your mind, like the idea of brainstorming. Write all the ideas. Then you will come with the editing. In the editing part, you will go to your draft and take out and add more. Some of the ideas are not relevant. You will delete them, and maybe you will add other ideas. Then we will have the revising. I have edited. Now I will revise it for grammar, for spelling, for punctuations, and maybe for idea organization. I'm all done with the revision. Now it is the publishing time. You are ready to publish it, to submit it to your teacher. So let's get into here. We will start writing about the accident. We will give it a title, which is The Amazing Fall Escape. So I gave it this title, The Amazing Fall Escape. What kind of accident? It's a falling accident. And I will say escape because he survived by the end. Concise and short. Now, what happened? How it happened? I will summarize the idea. Bob Hale jumped out of the airplane. The main and the backup parachute failed to open. This is the main idea. He jumped out of the airplane for a jump. However, both the main parachute and the backup parachute, they didn't open. They failed to open. Let's continue with the same chart in here. Here, our accident, who was involved, when it happened, where, and we're having also a why. So who was involved? He was actually Bob Hale, just the name. If we're having anyone who survived, who helped him, we will add the name. When did it happen? In November 1972. Maybe it's in the morning, at night, during a specific time. Where? On air. It happened while he was jumping on air. And why? Because both the main parachute and the backup parachutes failed to open. Why do we have this accident? Because, not because of Bob, because of the parachutes. Okay, so in here I'm going to organize my ideas. I will put them in order. At the beginning, Bob Hale jumped out of an airplane in November 1972. This is the first idea. Followed by the second. My second idea is the main parachute failed to open. Backup parachute failed to open. He dropped 900 meters at a 128 kilometer per hour. So here, now I'm describing the accident itself. By the end, he hit the ground face first, got up and walked away with only minor injuries. So at the beginning, I described the action, then, or let's say the background or the setting, followed by the accident itself, and I will end up with the results. Now I got my ideas. Now I will change these into sentences. Start with Bob Hale jumped out of an airplane in November 1972. Let's check it. In November 1972, Bob Hale survived after he fell 900 meters and hit the ground face. So here from the first sentence you will know who, when, and also the final result. He survived. Then the second sentence, the main parachute failed to open, the backup parachute failed to open, and he dropped 900 meters at 128 kilometers per hour. I will change it into a sentence. I might say, Bob jumped out of the airplane. However, neither the main nor the backup parachute opened. So, not this nor that, not this or that. The following, he hit the ground face first, got up and walked away, minor injuries. This is the idea. The sentence is, although he fell at 128 kilometers per hour, he got up and walked away with only minor injuries. Now I got my sentences. I can turn these into the paragraph. However, just a reminder, how can we start writing a paragraph? Do not forget to organize your ideas logically, maybe chronological order, or you might come up with, if it is a descriptive, you will start from the top to the bottom. Organize your ideas. Next, the idea of paragraphs. If you're going to write a long essay, make sure that you organize your paragraphs correctly. Followed by grammar. If you're speaking, choose the correct tense, whether past, present, or something that will happen in the future. Passive or active. Spelling. Make sure that you are always use the correct spelling of each word. Also, capitalization, capital letters, and you can refer to the MENT rule. And also the idea of punctuations that we're having full stop, question marks, commas, and other things. Now let's go back to our passage or paragraph at the beginning. In November 1972, Bob Hale survived after he fell 900 meters and hit the ground face. This is my first sentence, followed by Bob jumped out of an airplane. However, neither the main nor the backup parachute opened. Next, although he fell at 128 kilometers per hour, he got up lightly and walked away with only minor injuries. Now this is our paragraph, or let's call it the account of the accident, Bob Hale's fall escape. Okay, now we're having these sentences one by one, but I want you this time to check capitalization, or let's say we are going to revise our own paragraph. If anything is wrong, we're going to correct it together. At the beginning, in November 1972, Bob Hale survived after he fell 900 meters and hit the ground face. Now we are not speaking about ideas. I'm all done with the ideas. Let's check spelling, capitalization, and other tense, maybe, and other things. At the beginning, we're having November. Notice the N here. It's in N, the small n. I need it to be in capital because it's a name of a month. Followed by also Bob. The name should be in capital B. And he survived. It happened 1972. So it should be like survived, past. Then, and he hit the ground face. Here we need a full stop. So this it is. It will be this way. Bob jumped out of an airplane. However, neither the main nor the backup parachute opened. What can we correct in this one? Here at the beginning, we need a capital B for Bob, because it comes at the beginning of the sentence after the full stop, plus it is actually a name, someone's name. Notice the H in here. Do we write it in capital H, capital letter? Actually, no. This is a comma. It is not a full stop. So, however, will be small h. So, these they are. We're having capital B, also a comma, followed by a small h. Although he fell at 128 kilometers per hour, he got up lightly and walked away with only minor injuries. What are the things that we might correct in here? Capital A here, And also we need a comma here because this one is actually a time phrase after although, and it will end up with a full stop. So capital A, comma, and a full stop by the end of each sentence. So these they are. This is the revision part. Now you are ready to publish it and submit your paragraph. So when you are writing an account of an accident, what are the things that you have to put in your mind? You can check out using this one. What are the things that you can do? Whether you're doing it great, good, or you are okay, or you need to work more on it. The first thing that you think about, take notes when I think about things. Can you write down your ideas? Select important facts and details. Not everything, just the important information. Followed by, write about feelings, how you feel towards it. Form and write clear sentences. Your sentences are correct and they are clear. They give a meaningful sentence. Connect events, reasons, and causes using but, and the others. Edit and correct my mistakes in the revision part. Describe the scene in an imaginative manner. You're not only writing, you are writing using correct adjectives for a vivid picture. And also, use appropriate style or language. Which style? Is it formal or informal this time? You will use a formal style or language. You're not writing to a friend, this time you are writing to official. Okay, now in your books, page 82, we're having here an exercise. Exercise K. Write what you think happened. So we will try to make your own research, or you can make your guesses. Number 1. Have you heard about a skydiver whose parachute didn't open until he was close to the ground? What do you think happened to him? You can imagine a story, or you can make your own research online. For me, I have heard about someone who went on a skydiving. He landed on his face, hurt his nose and forehead lightly. So nose and forehead. He then pulled himself up, shook the dust off, and walked away unharmed. So I have read a similar story. Someone who fell, he was skydiving, then he fell on his forehead and his nose. However, it was only minor injury. He shook, we're having here, he shook the dust off, he cleaned his clothes, and he walked away. Nothing bad happened to him. Another story in here, write about what you think happened. Have you heard about a boy who got trapped under the ice of a frozen lake? Someone who was under ice. What do you think happened to him? Someone who was trapped under the ice. Let's imagine what could happen, and we will continue the story. I will say the boy wasn't breathing when the rescuers got him out. The doctors were able to bring him back, and he recovered over the next few months. So he was trapped for days. He was almost frozen. However, when they got him out, he was unconscious. The doctors helped him, and he recovered. He became better and better by time, and he recovered over the next few months. So he needed months to recover. You can imagine the result or the ending of each story. For your homework, I want you to come up with your own stories. This time you will write about an account of an accident. Whether you are an eyewitness or you were the victim or you were involved within this accident, just write about it. You will write about your own accident. Okay. Guess that is it for the lesson today, and thank you so much for your time.